A lot of people have started to point out that the internet feels a little weird right now. There's a huge cultural debate surrounding what we want our future to look like, both online and offline. A huge part of this is the presence of AI in the creative space. AI creating videos, AI writing books. This is all something that a lot of people are concerned about. And it's interesting to note that as we have the rise of AI, there's also a huge cultural pushback against it from a very large portion of the community. There are things that feel really, really human that are thriving in the same year as the rise of AI. As a non-book example, I feel like a really good one is there's a lot of I've seen like a lot of headlines from different niche spaces talking about the rise of folk music in 2025. The idea that a guy and his guitar can go into the woods, sing a song that feels like it's creative, well-written, and from the heart, and become really popular on the internet. For the music industry, that's almost as authentic feeling as it gets, and it's really interesting that something like that is thriving right now. People on YouTube are looking for something real, and the booktube space is no exception. In fact, I would say it could be argued that people in the booktube space that read books are probably more anti-AI for AI being in the creative sphere than the general population. There's a huge focus on authenticity and what feels like you're actually sort of a human, and what feels like not only are you a human, but you're not necessarily just following what everyone else is doing. You're not overly influenced by the internet. You seem like you're kind of thinking for yourself. Authenticity. They don't want to see their favorite creator take on sketchy sponsorships, and they don't want to see someone that they actually watch becoming a sellout. Now, to be fair, I don't think everyone who takes a sponsor is necessarily a sellout, but it does kind of get into this conversation of authenticity and what are we even doing here. So conversations happen and people try to pinpoint and define what authenticity is, and I find the whole discussion surrounding this and trying to pinpoint exactly what we want very, very intriguing and interesting. Authenticity misconceptions. So it honestly doesn't really surprise me that this conversation is coming up again in 2025 with everything that's been happening, and people keep wondering if we still have authenticity in the booktube space. Booktube in 2025 is not the same thing as Booktube in 2015. People will say, oh, the same thing has come up over and over again, and while that is true, if you just objectively look at the titles and the thumbnails and watch booktube videos that are popular in 2025 and then go back in time and watch the ones that were popular in 2015, they are not the same. It's also very clear that some big booktubers are hiring very, very engaging editors and sort of engaging more and more with retention editing. Hate it or love it, but it's sort of happening someplace in the space. Heavily simplified, retention editing is when you make sure that you're varying the visuals of your video constantly. So some people go as far as to say that when you edit for retention, and you can kind of see the results of it because creators have statistics that they can see exactly when people drop off, they can see what percentage of their video is being watched. So instead of just accepting that that's how the internet works, they get into editing their content very heavily, retention editing. Some people even say that you shouldn't give your viewers more than 7 or 8 seconds of looking at the same thing on the screen. I got this comment on a recent video, and I think part of it is because I don't even bother with this. I live and die on my ideas of my video. I do edit, and I do put things in my videos, and we'll talk about that, but I don't necessarily full-on overblown retention edit. I just can't keep up with that. It would take me way too long and I would get out so few videos. Anyway, I got this comment. Stopped watching after 2 minutes of rumbling. Very boring video. I respect my viewers enough to give my full nuanced argument. I don't cut out 70% of my video just to keep people watching. The people who are supposed to be here are going to want my full thoughts on the topic, and I've come to accept that. If you are already bored, you aren't really meant to be my viewer, please go away. You don't need to spend 20 hours editing a 15 or 20 minute video, especially given that within the book community, hopefully people who would watch content in any of the area of BookTube read books, and hopefully since they read books, they also have a little bit of an attention span. That would make sense. With all of that in mind, some people go to say that if you edit your videos at all, or if you put any B-roll in your video, or if you script your video or think too much about what you're going to say before you press record, that by default sort of makes you inauthentic. The format argument. Steve Donahue is pretty well known in a portion of the BookTube community. He posts like 5 videos a day. It's very impressive. I can't imagine posting that much. He seems to be, from what I can tell, a book critic by day, meaning he actually gets paid to review books in a more formal setting, but he also posts these videos. He is known for sharing strong opinions, and that sometimes doesn't go super well for him, but I kind of respect that he does it anyway, regardless of what I agree with him on and what I don't agree with him on. I just like when people actually say what they think, so I appreciate him for that. And this last week, he took a stance on B-roll in editing, and that's basically when someone puts a picture up over their face or a little clip up over their face while they're talking. Anytime my face is not on the screen, that is B-roll.
If it happens in the video, it's going to stress to me that this is all a highly edited, incredibly non-spontaneous thing.
I think he is right. Videos that are like planned to some extent aren't actually spontaneous, and you can usually tell if a video is completely spontaneous versus not being completely spontaneous. The way he frames it almost makes spontaneous or not spontaneous equivalent to inauthentic. I'll let him continue a little bit.
Which is, to me, is going to be off-putting. I know a lot of you feel differently about BookTube and YouTube videos. To me, that's going to feel off-putting. Any element of disingenuousness is going to make me feel, oh, okay, I'm watching a show here.
So according to Steve, to some extent, B-roll, a lot of editing, and maybe thinking out your ideas way too much is not spontaneous or disingenuous, he said, to an extent that maybe it could be seen as inauthentic. I think disingenuous and inauthentic are very similar words, so that's my argument that that's kind of what he could be saying here. I actually think he picked up on something. I just don't think I agree with the exact way he's talking about it and the exact way he's framing it. I think the core issue is actually different. I don't think B-roll is inherently inauthentic. I don't think scripting your video is inherently inauthentic. I don't think the only way to be authentic online is to just grab a camera, press record, and hope for the best. I feel like those are kind of two different things. You might be able to tell that for my own channel, this is not completely off the cuff. I do write an essay as if I were writing an essay before I even press record. Now, do I read directly from what I wrote? Absolutely not, because I don't want to do that, and I'd rather rephrase it in a way that sounds natural to how I would actually talk rather than talking from how I would write, because I've noticed that how I write and how I talk is actually very different, and I don't want to lose that sense of authenticity by just reading off a teleprompter. I don't want to do that personally. But the fact that I write my thoughts out first just to kind of understand what I'm thinking, I don't think makes anything sort of inauthentic, even if I know exactly where this video is going. I know exactly where we're going. This is not just like meandering from one topic to the next and then I miraculously think of the next one. I know where we're going, and I hope that you know I know where we're going if you've seen any of my videos. And to be fair, Steve agrees with me on my channel, at least sometimes. On one video, Steve left this comment. These video discussions of yours are so good. How on earth do you not have 30,000 subscribers? So either he got over the fact that that particular video had B-roll, editing, and a very specific formalized script and decided that my ideas were so good that he didn't really care that that stuff was annoying him, or that stuff didn't annoy him with that particular video in the first place. I actually let him know I was making this video, and he responded to me because, I mean, I think at this point when I say I'm going to make a video, people know I'm going to put a lot of thought into it, so he wanted to make sure that I had this in it. So let me read the comment real quick. I don't actually have the exact comment here, but he said something along the lines of, my videos are sort of the exception, and when you are doing a video like mine, you probably need a different approach than the videos he was talking about. So he was, in a way, not even talking about like this sort of content in the first place, which brings up questions in my head. But then he also told me to let you know that these are just his preferences. And I actually think that's really important when we start having discussions online. People are allowed to have preferences, even if you don't disagree with them. Yeah, that's the point. I feel like sometimes that is lost. Preferences are okay. That being said, I feel like people with these preferences, when they're kind of talking about these superficial elements of video creation, are actually kind of noticing something else. And I'll let them talk for themselves. Steve will be tagged in this video. Let me make my point though. The actual problem. I'm going to pose that the actual problem that we're feeling is not actually based on these superficial things. You shouldn't actually care if a creator has a bad camera or a good camera. You shouldn't really care if a creator is editing and cutting things out, or if they are giving you the full unedited video. You shouldn't really care if they decide to put up a B-roll image or not. On some of my videos, I put up a B-roll image that supports what I'm saying. For example, if I give you a statistic, I know that some people want to fact check that statistic, so I put it on the screen for you to look at. And that is, I think, completely fine, and I don't think that's inauthentic. I think we detect inauthenticity when a creator isn't being creative. When they put so much effort into the thumbnail and into the title and into the editing, to the point that we don't even know if they're putting that much thought into their ideas. It's all smoke and mirrors and special effects, and what they're actually saying doesn't feel that substantial. It just feels like an accumulation of what everyone is already saying on that topic. There's nothing new. So when we see a video like that, which to be fair are becoming more and more common, we see the fancy editing, we see the nice camera, we see the special effects, we see the perfect, or we hear the perfect audio, and we think, oh, that's the problem. They are overly polished to the point of not being authentic. In reality, I don't think any of that matters one way or the other. I think what we're really noticing is that the person speaking isn't saying anything. They're not very creative content-wise. What they're saying is not substantial, and they're adding absolutely nothing to the discussion, but they're getting views anyway because of their special effects. So we kind of equate the two and assume that that's the cause, or that's the sign of a video that feels inauthentic, even when that might not necessarily be the case. AI makes it worse. Let me sound the bells when it comes to AI in the booktube space. I can give AI a topic and it can write me a script, and then I just deliver it with my voice using my face and everything, but everything that is sort of actually being delivered, the substance, can be entirely AI. I hope no creators in the booktube space have started using AI this way, but when they do, because people always will, the feeling that someone like Steve might have will become worse. It will feel even more generic than what we might already be seeing. I've come across YouTube videos that actively teach creators how to do this, how to feed AI a prompt and get a perfectly polished YouTube video that will make them have the confidence to start their channel. If you're ever watching a video and it just kind of feels off, this could definitely be a thing. I've already sort of noticed it more in other spaces than in the booktube space, to where I just start feeling this feels very, very generic. And at the same time, I don't want us to we don't need to have witch hunts for who is using AI or not. But if you start feeling that all videos are even the same more than they were before, it's a possibility, even though I don't think you should ever necessarily call out someone unless you're very, very positive. The same reason I don't think we should call out authors unless we are really, really positive. However, let me read you this just because it's interesting. I gave ChatGPT my topic for this video and said, write me a script. If I had read off of ChatGPT, this is what it would have sounded like. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm your name, Allison. I would say Allison. And today we're diving into a topic that's long overdue, Booktube and authenticity. Booktube has exploded in the last decade, giving us amazing content, recommendations, and a tight-knit community. But with growth comes complexity. And lately, a lot of us have been wondering, how authentic is Booktube really? So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's have real talk. Was that actually better than my intro? Well, I hope you don't think so. And if you do think so, I think there's probably a better channel for you out there somewhere. However, some people who might start to rely on it might be seemingly leaning more into the space's stereotypes, because that's what AI is going to do. It's going to feel like the most generic script for a space possible. And I'm really sad that it's actually a thing that some people are going to be using. So I would say, rather than being picky about if someone is editing or using a fancy camera, we should be paying attention when we're thinking about authenticity to what that person is actually saying. And if what they're saying feels unique, new, human, those things matter to me more than anything that could be smoke and mirrors but maybe isn't. What did we already lose? I recently had a video from Samantha at Thoughts on Tomes recommended to me, and she talked about how the booktube space has shifted and some of her thoughts about it. I'll let her talk for a second.
But I've noticed since kind of taking a little bit of a break, I was never completely gone, but taking a bit of a break from watching as much, that the way that I, and it seems like a lot of other people, have been engaging with YouTube and YouTube creators has shifted.
She goes on to say in her video that booktube has either turned into reading projects that feel very inaccessible, like reading a bunch of books that fit a theme that you just don't want to do, or just a ton of reading, because if you say I read 20 books like this, you're going to get more clicks. Or if you're not in the reading challenge space, she says the other space she feels like is thriving is the video essay. One of her commenters said this: the part where you talk about what kind of videos are in the book space now, it almost feels like the intent has shifted. Reading used to drive the videos, like what you are currently reading. So the hobby was mainly reading and capitalizing on the reading by making content. Now, content is the hobby, and reading is the vehicle to make the content. And I think that's the struggle I have. Like, I want to read what I read and discuss, not plan out elaborate concept videos to shove a bunch of books into. This comment seems to be focusing on challenges. For example, something that someone could do could be like, I read 20 pink books or something, where you come up with some generic category and then find a ton of books that fit into it. And because it's kind of an intriguing idea, it gets a lot of people to click. The video also kind of mentioned video essays, and I am basically now a video essayist, and I actually do think it's my true form. I've always thought that like everyone sort of has an authentic way of being, and that probably leans into a specific style of content. And this is actually probably what I should be doing as far as what I'd be good at, regardless of if it was popular or not. That being said, there's something true to what she's saying. There is a lot more success in the space right now if you're either doing something that seems engaging in like a challenging vloggy sense, or if you're willing to talk about a topic that people want to talk about. That's way more popular than book review videos, whether we want it to be or not. And even though I totally see their points, I kind of understand the shift. I personally have a lot of books to read, and I'm not looking for books to read as often as I was early on when I was consuming content in the 2010s. Now I'm looking to have conversations with people, and sometimes that's about a book I've read, so I'm not saying that space is done for me, but I understand when people are consuming more content that feels more general, because there's a little bit less of a barrier to entry in a way. You could click on this video no matter what you read, and we can still have a discussion. That's all I'm kind of saying. So there is definitely a shift in what BookTube is making popular. I don't think that means that the content that is popular is necessarily inauthentic. I think it depends so much on the creator and what they do. There are definitely going to be people who say that the only way a BookTube channel can be authentic is if they only do single book reviews and they talk about a single book for 30 minutes, and I know that those people exist. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think you can make any topic and any piece of content authentic if you put yourself into it and actually choose to say something in it. Does BookTube actually reward authenticity? So I don't think the format of the video determines authenticity. However, a good thing to ask is, does BookTube, or rather the BookTube viewers, actually reward authenticity? Some people don't think so. Bald Book Geek, in one of his videos, kind of discussed how oftentimes his creative ideas would flop on BookTube and his more generic ideas would do really well.
But here's the truth. I was bored. I was making content I didn't enjoy filming because it felt like that's what people expected. If I tried something different, something a bit weird, a bit more personal, it usually flopped. So I went back to safe content, the comfortable content, the stuff that looked like everyone else's, because that's what seemed to work.
Not to undermine his point, because I think he made a really good point there. That being said, he did turn into a faceless mini video essay channel, and he's doing just fine. So maybe sometimes we underestimate our viewers a little bit, and we just need to find what sticks, even if there are a lot of flops in like the ideas we think of. Another creator a couple years ago, mind you, I'm pulling from the archives of 2023, once asked the community of creators if they felt like creating made them feel like they were putting on a performance. A performance that in a way didn't feel authentic.
How much of this is us being authentic and being ourselves when we sit in front of a camera, or how much of it is us having to put on a performance and we're acting and it's not really who we are? That is a legitimate question.
A lot of her video talked about how negative content seems to do a lot better. She said on her channel and on a lot of channels, she noticed that when people read a book, or when people really ranted on a topic, they were going to get more views than if they didn't. For her, this felt inauthentic to herself to some degree, because she finds herself to be a generally positive person, yet the algorithm and the people who are watching YouTube sort of incentivize negativity. One of her commenters said, "I've been a journalist for 20 plus years. If it bleeds, it leads is a saying for a reason. Human beings are curious and nosy. I mean, those traits make me a good journalist. There is a place for authentic, quality content in media, but that content is not rewarded or promoted in the algorithm. My hope is always that people who want this content will find us. Great video as always." Another commenter pointed out that people care about authenticity with a little bit of a twist. She said, "Authenticity is such an interesting concept and fun to do research on. Oftentimes, it also has a lot to do with perception. You don't have to be authentic as long as you're perceived that way. And honestly, if I look into the comment section of different videos and different communities, I get the feeling that authenticity is really important to viewers." So maybe the idea is to come up with a video topic to cover even if you don't actually like it, and then try to seem authentic while doing so. I really hope that's not necessary. It definitely highlights the idea that authenticity is subjective and different people have different expectations. Some people will say you're inauthentic for being too negative. Others will say you're inauthentic for being too positive. It's really hard to pinpoint and it's really hard to define. We care about the human, but we don't know how to actually accurately decide what is human with everything we watch. My final thoughts. So as people get more and more obsessed with authenticity in the period of AI creating stuff, I think it's really good for us to define what authenticity is. To me, a creator and a channel feels authentic when the creator is, well, actually creative. This does not mean making videos like mine. It does not mean doing certain formats or not doing certain formats. Someone can be very creative and authentic with a single book review if they share their unique thoughts on a book, and if they go deep into the analysis of the book they read and they don't just parrot what they think should be said about the book. That would make a creative creator, in my mind, even if they use no B-roll, even if they use no editing. I don't think that's necessary by any means. I'm not on the opposite of that. But what makes it authentic is saying something they want to say, not choosing topics just because you think you'll get clicks, not saying what you think people want you to say, but creating content however you want to. Or videos. The word content is annoying to me sometimes, but everyone uses it, so I do too. Being willing to just do the format you want to do, even if it's not going to be the most snappy. If I were to get generic advice from like a YouTube guru, he would probably tell me to make my videos more snappy and to stop ranting and rambling about things, or rumbling, is that what the comment said? Or I rumble about topics. In this cultural moment when AI can come up with average opinions instantaneously, I think what makes a video on a YouTube channel in any niche authentic or inauthentic is not how polished or unpolished it is. I think it's how unique the creator's voice is and if it can actually shine through the noise. Let me know what you think about authenticity in the online space. Are we losing it? And like, what is it? Because I don't even think I have that down. Anyway, thanks for watching.